What if Dumbledore didn't just keep secrets from Harry, but quietly engineered his entire life as a weapon against Voldemort? Not just guiding him, not just mentoring him, but actually shaping where he lived, what he knew, and even when he was allowed to die. Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of our Harry Potter deep dive series here on the channel. So far we've pulled apart the prophecy, the Horcrux hunt, the Deathly Hallows, and all the messy magic and logic around the final war. If you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to watch those after this one, because today we're zooming in on the one character who sits at the center of every plan, every twist, and every secret: Albus Dumbledore. This episode is our Dumbledore Secrets installment, and I want to be clear about what I mean by that. We're not just talking about fun little mysteries like why he loves sherbet lemons. We're talking about the massive, story-defining things he chose not to tell Harry. The full prophecy. The truth about the Deathly Hallows. His past with Grindelwald and Ariana. Snape's real mission. The Horcrux twist. And of course, the planned sacrifice in the Forbidden Forest. On the surface, the books present Dumbledore as the wise, slightly eccentric headmaster who always turns up with the right explanation at the right moment. But when we start lining up what he knew, and when he knew it, the picture gets a lot darker. He hears the prophecy and leaves baby Harry on the Dursleys' doorstep with almost no protection beyond blood magic and a note. He holds on to James's invisibility cloak for years, recognizes it as a Deathly Hallow, and then hands it back without ever clearly saying, "By the way, this cloak is one of the most powerful artifacts in wizarding history." We're going to walk through every major secret he kept from Harry, specifically asking how each one shaped Harry's path. Did hiding the full wording of the prophecy push Harry into riskier choices? Did the silence about the Hallows almost hand Voldemort an unbeatable advantage? Did keeping Snape's mission and the Astronomy Tower plan hidden tear the Order apart for no good reason? I'd also argue that the biggest question is whether Dumbledore's decision to conceal the Horcrux inside Harry turns the boy who lived into the boy who was always meant to die. The tone for this video is going to be conversational and analytical. We love these books, we love this world, and Dumbledore is still one of the most compelling characters in the entire story. But that doesn't mean we can't look at him critically. Some of his choices feel noble, others feel, at best, conveniently vague. And a few moments, once you see all the pieces, start to look uncomfortably like a calculated human sacrifice. By the end, I'll let you guys be the judge. Is Dumbledore a hero playing a terrible hand as well as anyone could? An anti-hero who believes the ends always justify the means? Or something much darker, hiding behind twinkling eyes and lemon drops? Before we dive in, keep that question in the back of your mind as we lay out every secret step by step. Let's dive into it. So, as we start pulling on all these threads around Dumbledore, we should zoom out for a second and remember where this episode actually sits in our bigger Harry Potter deep dive project. This isn't just a one-off character roast. This is basically the Dumbledore chapter of a much larger investigation into how the stories, magic, and logic really work. Hey everyone! Welcome to another installment in this ongoing attempt to make sense of the wizarding world's most confusing decisions. If you've been with us for a while, you know we've already gone hard on Deathly Hallows plot hole territory, Gamp's law and the Horcrux hunt food problem, the Seven Potters plan, and that wonderfully messy Elder Wand allegiance twist. We've also broken down the Horcrux logic across the series, and we've spent a whole video on Snape's double life and what he's actually doing in each book. Those earlier videos were very zoomed out. We moved chronologically, we hopped between scenes, and we asked whether the magic system and character choices held together under pressure. This episode is a little different. Here, we're treating Dumbledore's secrets as if they're their own mystery novel, running underneath the main plot from Philosopher's Stone all the way to Deathly Hallows. Same analytical style, same obsession with internal explanation, but focused on one seemingly wise old man who keeps not telling the truth. If you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to queue up the Deathly Hallows plot holes breakdown after this, because a lot of what we say there about wand allegiance and the Elder Wand only fully lands once you realize how much Dumbledore already knew. I'd also argue that our Horcrux logic video hits very differently once you factor in the idea that Dumbledore strongly suspected Harry was a Horcrux and still sent him on that hunt with half-truths at best. I want to be clear about what I mean by series here. We're not just listing trivia from each book. We're building a running case file. In one episode, we ask why portkeys are so selectively used. In another, we question why Snape's mission is so theatrical if he and Dumbledore agreed on the Astronomy Tower outcome in advance. Now, by isolating Dumbledore, we can loop back and say, okay, if he's the one designing the plan, do those earlier plot hole moments start to look less like mistakes and more like deliberate, if morally questionable, choices? If you're new to the channel, you're actually in a great spot starting here. This Dumbledore breakdown will give you the emotional and strategic spine of the whole saga. Then, when you go back to the Deathly Hallows video, or the Snape Double Life episode, you'll see familiar moments reframed through what Dumbledore was hiding in the background. And that's where this gets fun. Some of the secrets we're about to unpack will send you right back into those earlier videos, and those earlier videos will in turn raise even more questions about Dumbledore's plan. It's a kind of narrative binge loop. With that in mind, let's move into the first major secret, the prophecy Dumbledore heard, and what he really expected Harry to do with it. So why do Dumbledore's secrets matter more than anyone else's? Why are we zooming in on his choices instead of, say, Fudge's denial or Snape's double life? Because once we look at the architecture of this story, Dumbledore is sitting in the control room. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. Dumbledore isn't just Hogwarts' quirky headmaster with a sweet tooth. He's the leader of the Order of the Phoenix, the original witness to the prophecy, and the only wizard Voldemort ever openly feared. That combination puts him at the center of almost every important decision the good side makes, from who guards the stone, to who teaches defense, to who gets told the truth and who gets fed a comforting half-explanation. And it goes deeper. Dumbledore is the one character who quietly connects the prophecy, the Horcruxes, the Deathly Hallows, and Harry's childhood trauma into one continuous plan. He hears Trelawney's prophecy, he studies Voldemort's past, he tracks down the Horcruxes, he owns the Elder Wand, he holds on to the invisibility cloak for years, and he's the one who leaves Harry on the Dursleys' doorstep. When that same person starts keeping secrets, the ripple effects aren't small. They rewrite the logic of the entire book series. On the surface, we meet him as this kindly grandfather figure. He cracks jokes at the welcoming feast, gives out house points like candy, and tells Harry that love is the greatest magic of all. But then we notice the other Dumbledore. The cold strategist who sends 11-year-olds past a three-headed dog, who withholds the full prophecy until Voldemort is literally back, who lets Harry walk into the graveyard in Goblet, and who plans his own murder with Snape while never fully warning the boy whose life that plan depends on. That contrast is important. It's not just a character quirk, it's the hidden operating system of the story. If we take Dumbledore at face value, the plot can feel full of plot hole moments and seemingly convenient escapes. Why doesn't he explain Horcruxes sooner? Why not tell Harry what the Hallows are when he knows Harry already owns one? Why leave Harry to learn about Grindelwald and Ariana from a Rita Skeeter book instead of from him? Once we accept that Dumbledore is deliberately curating information, those questions stop being loose threads and start looking like design. I'd also argue that understanding his secrets is the only way to really understand the stakes of Harry's journey. Because Dumbledore isn't just reacting to Voldemort, he's shaping Harry into a weapon, all the way from the Prophecy Night to King's Cross. If you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to remember the film's version of Dumbledore while we walk through the book's version. When we actually trace his choices from that first prophecy to the white mist of King's Cross, his moral alignment may look very different than the comforting mentor we think we know, and that's exactly where we're headed next. So if Dumbledore's alignment looks different when we trace it from Prophecy Night to King's Cross, we need a way to talk about what's actually going on. Is this just a mysterious wizard being mysterious, or is it a headmaster quietly steering a child toward death? Those are not the same thing, and the book blurs them on purpose. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. Some of Dumbledore's vagueness is clearly narrative design. Rowling wants us to feel that old-school Merlin-level awe around him and around powerful magic in general. Think about how we first hear the prophecy, half of it, in a smashed orb delivered in a chaotic battle, or the way the Deathly Hallows are introduced as a fairy tale, not a textbook entry. The story is deliberately mysterious there. Information is withheld to build tension, to keep the magic feeling bigger than any one explanation, but the internal logic can still hold. That's what I'd call deliberately mysterious storytelling. The author knows more than we do, and Dumbledore knows more than Harry does, but the gaps are about suspense and wonder. We don't yet know that Dumbledore recognized the invisibility cloak as a Hallow, or that he's already piecing together Horcruxes. The camera just hasn't panned over yet. In those moments, the secrecy lives outside the story world, in the way the book is structured. But then there's a different kind of secrecy, and this is where things get uncomfortable. Inside the story, Dumbledore makes conscious choices to hide information from Harry, from Snape, even from the Order, specifically to steer their behavior. He tells Snape about the planned death on the astronomy tower, but lets the rest of the Order believe Snape might be a traitor. He suspects Harry is a Horcrux in Half-Blood Prince, and still sends him on missions with only half an explanation. That's not just mystery, that's manipulation. Here's the question we're going to keep coming back to, scene after scene. When is Dumbledore preserving mystery to protect Harry, and when is he using secrecy to control Harry's choices? Leaving baby Harry with the Dursleys and never explaining why until much later? Was that about blood magic protection, or about creating a boy who would willingly die for a world that never really loved him properly? I'll let you guys be the judge. pattern interrupt for a second. Once you start tracking what Dumbledore knew and when he chose to say it, some of the most beloved scenes in the entire series tilt on their axis. The King's Cross conversation, which feels like pure comfort on a first read, suddenly becomes a debrief from someone who orchestrated that death. His gentle confession about the Hallows, his regret over Ariana, his praise for Harry's courage all sit differently. If you remember, he could have told Harry the full plan years earlier and chose not to. And that tension between mystery and manipulation is exactly what we're going to dig into next, as we walk through each major secret one by one. So if Dumbledore is this fusion of kindly mentor and master manipulator, we need to get really precise about what we're even calling a secret. Otherwise, every time he pauses for dramatic effect could count, and that doesn't help anyone. I want to be clear about what I mean by a Dumbledore secret in this breakdown before we dive in. We're not talking about every single thing he doesn't tell Harry. Of course, an adult wizard in his hundreds knows more magic, more history, more politics than a traumatized 11-year-old. That normal information gap is baked into the story. What we're focusing on is information Dumbledore demonstrably has that directly affects Harry's safety, choices, or soul, and that he consciously decides not to share. If he doesn't know yet, it's not a secret. If it doesn't touch Harry's fate, it's trivia. So, for example, Dumbledore not giving Harry a full syllabus on Gamp's Law is fine. Dumbledore knowing the prophecy word forward, understanding that neither can live while the other survives, and still leaving Harry in the dark until the end of Order of the Phoenix, that's a high-stakes omission. Same with his suspicion that Harry carries a piece of Voldemort's soul. By Half-Blood Prince, he fears it's true, but he never tells Harry outright while alive. We're treating those as secrets because they reshape how we read Harry's every dangerous moment. It's also important to separate human flaws from deliberate patterns. A character making a mistake is not a plot hole, and a character being emotional is not automatically sinister. When Dumbledore avoids talking about Ariana because it hurts, that's grief. When he quietly arranges his own death with Snape on the astronomy tower and lets the entire Order think Snape is a traitor for a year, that's not just emotion. That's sustained, strategic withholding. I'd also argue that the category gets even narrower when we look at intent. Some things he forgets, misjudges, or simply doesn't prioritize in the chaos of a war. Those oversights might be frustrating, but they're not all grand conspiracies. What we're tracking are the long games, the Hallows he understands but never clearly explains, the Grindelwald past he buries until Rita Skeeter forces it out, the way he nudges Harry toward sacrifice without ever saying, "You will have to die." To keep this grounded, we're leaning heavily on canon, the books themselves, the memories in the pensieve, and especially that King's Cross chapter in Deathly Hallows, where Dumbledore finally offers his own explanation. He literally walks Harry through why he returned the invisibility cloak without context, why he left him with the Dursleys, why he waited so long to reveal the full prophecy. That retrospective confession is our primary source for judging what he knew and when. As we go secret by secret, I'll let you guys be the judge. Which omissions feel like necessary leadership in a war, and which feel like unethical manipulation of a child soldier? Where does wise mystery end and convenient vagueness begin? Keep your own mental scorecard, because the pattern that emerges when you line these moments up is, in some ways, more unsettling than any single revelation. And with that framework in place, let's dive into it and start with the prophecy that set Harry's entire life on rails. So, with that big picture framework in mind, we have to roll the clock all the way back. Before Horcruxes, before Hallows, before Hogwarts letters. The first secret Dumbledore ever keeps from Harry doesn't start in a classroom or on a battlefield. It starts in a dingy upstairs room at the Hog's Head. This is the prophecy scene. Sybil Trelawney, not yet the eccentric divination teacher, is auditioning for a job. Dumbledore is the only official witness. And in the middle of her otherwise unimpressive interview, she drops into that harsh, otherworldly voice and delivers the words that will quietly script Harry's entire life. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born as the 7th month dies, we know the rest. Neither can live while the other survives. Crucially, part of that prophecy is overheard. Enter Snape. He's lurking downstairs, working for Voldemort, and he carries a fragment of the prophecy to his master. Not the whole thing, but just enough. A child born at the end of July to parents who have defied Voldemort 3 times. That incomplete scrap becomes the most important and arguably most convenient piece of magic in the entire story. Because Voldemort decides it means Harry. From that night, Dumbledore actually knows 2 things. First, that a child born as the 7th month dies will have the power to defeat Voldemort. Second, that Voldemort himself will mark him as his equal. In other words, the prophecy doesn't just predict a hero, it predicts that Voldemort will create his own rival by attacking a baby. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. Dumbledore walks out of the Hog's Head fully aware that a child's life is about to be shaped, maybe destroyed, by a sentence spoken in a trance. And when that attack happens in Godric's Hollow, Dumbledore makes another massive choice. He sends Hagrid to collect baby Harry, he keeps control of the boy's placement, and he leaves him on a suburban doorstep with nothing but a letter. No conversation with Petunia, no magical guardian present, no plan to sit Harry down years later and explain the full context. Just a note and a decade of silence. So Harry grows up under the Dursleys, believing his parents died in a car crash. He's locked in cupboards, mocked for any accidental magic, and never told that a prophecy is the reason Voldemort targeted him in the first place. Even once he reaches Hogwarts, Dumbledore gives him only a partial, sanitized version of that prophecy, and only in Order of the Phoenix. For years, Harry knows he's famous, but not that his entire existence has been effectively drafted into a cosmic contract. I'd also argue that this is where the moral question really starts to bite. Given what Dumbledore knows, does he have an obligation to tell Harry, at least by his early Hogwarts years, that his life was shaped by a prophecy? Or is the secrecy itself a kind of protection? I'll let you guys be the judge for now, because the next secret raises the stakes even higher. What Dumbledore really expected Harry to do once he finally heard those words. So we've reached the moment where secrecy finally blows up in everyone's face. The battle in the Ministry, the chase through the shelves. The Death Eaters closing in on that dusty glass orb that supposedly contains Harry's fate. And then, in one chaotic instant, the prophecy shatters. No recording, no neat magical explanation, just fragments of words no one hears. All that risk, and the weapon is gone. Cut to Dumbledore's office. Fawkes, the silver instruments, and Harry absolutely wrecked with grief and rage. This is where Dumbledore finally sits him down and recites the prophecy from memory. On paper, that looks like full disclosure. In practice, it's a very curated truth. He gives us the famous wording, the one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord, and, of course, neither can live while the other survives. But notice how he frames it. He immediately pivots to choice, to love, to the idea that Harry is different from Voldemort because he can still choose mercy. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. Emphasizing Harry's capacity for love is beautiful, but it also gently nudges us away from the brutally fatalistic part of the prophecy. Neither can live isn't just poetic. It's a built-in death sentence for at least one of them. And then there's the missing name. Neville Dumbledore knows and admits to us in the book that the prophecy could have applied to another child. Voldemort chose Harry, and in choosing him, essentially marked him as his equal. But Dumbledore does not share that with Harry in this scene. That silence is important. Without the Neville angle, Harry's sense of self gets locked to this idea that he was always uniquely destined, almost cosmically selected, rather than accidentally targeted by a paranoid dark wizard. I'd also argue that this is a subtle kind of control. If Harry knew he was one of at least two possible candidates, he might see his identity as more contingent, more about ongoing choices than about one fixed destiny. By hiding that, Dumbledore lets the story of Harry as chosen one stand unchallenged in Harry's own mind. Now, Dumbledore does show guilt here. He says he cared too much, that he delayed telling Harry because he could not bear to add to his burdens. It's a powerful, emotional moment. But again, look at the logic beneath the emotion. He still doesn't unpack that he suspected, by this point, that Harry might have to die to finish Voldemort for good. He admits he waited too long, without fully admitting what exactly he was waiting for. Pattern interrupt for a second. What if the timing is the whole point? By controlling when and how Harry hears the prophecy, Dumbledore is also quietly managing when Harry internalizes himself as a necessary sacrifice. Not too young or he might break. Not too late or he might refuse. I'll let you guys be the judge, but this half-truth sets the stage for an even bigger omission. What Dumbledore already knows about Horcruxes, Hallows, and the price Harry will eventually be asked to pay. Hey everyone, welcome to another layer of Dumbledore's long game. If you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to stick around, because the next secret takes us straight into that territory. Because before we dive into Horcruxes and Hallows, we need to talk about the house where Dumbledore quite literally built Harry's life. Let's dive into it. The blood protection at Privet Drive. On the surface, it sounds beautifully simple. Lily dies for Harry, her sacrificial love becomes ancient magic, and Dumbledore, ever the master strategist, finds a way to bottle that protection. He goes to Petunia, the resentful Muggle sister who shares Lily's blood, and anchors the charm to her home. As long as Harry can call number 4 Privet Drive home, Voldemort himself cannot touch him there. That's the explanation we finally get in Half-Blood Prince. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. This isn't just a vague blessing. It's a specific, long-term enchantment Dumbledore sets up the night Voldemort falls. Harry must return every year. He must have a room there. He must be able to claim it as his primary residence until he comes of age. The magic is powerful, but the terms are oddly legalistic, almost like a magical custody arrangement where no one bothered to ask the child. And here's where the story gets uncomfortable. Harry doesn't actually learn any of this until he's 16. For 5 books, he endures the Dursleys' neglect, verbal abuse, and those bars on the window in Chamber of Secrets with almost no sense of why he's being forced back. Even when Dumbledore does explain it in the Spinner's End era of the book series, he frames everything as a kind of necessary hardship. Yes, your aunt and uncle were unkind, but you were safe, and safety had to come first. But did it really have to look like this? Dumbledore chooses a house he knows is emotionally hostile, then never meaningfully checks in on Harry's treatment. We see one howler to Petunia in Order of the Phoenix and a couple of doorstep conversations, but no real intervention, no attempt to enforce basic decency beyond the bare minimum needed to keep the magic running. I'd also argue that for a wizard who can bend the logic of ancient spells, he shows remarkably little creativity about making that protection compatible with a loving environment. This secret reinforces a pattern we've already started to see. Over and over, Dumbledore prioritizes the war's strategic needs over Harry's psychological well-being, while still presenting himself as the caring mentor. He visits at the end of the school year, offers lemon drops and twinkling eyes, and then sends Harry back to the cupboard under the stairs family because, in his words, it is important that he understand pain and loss. So here's the lingering question. Could earlier honesty about the protection, combined with a real conversation with Harry and the Dursleys, have preserved the blood magic without quite so much trauma? Could Harry have had both safety and something resembling a childhood? I'll let you guys be the judge, but this tension between protection and sacrifice is going to matter even more when we get to the secret that involves Harry's life itself. And that tension between protection and sacrifice really starts way earlier than we like to admit. It starts the first year Harry ever sets foot in Hogwarts, when Dumbledore turns a children's adventure mystery into a live-fire exercise. Let's dive into it. Philosopher's Stone. We all remember the story beats. Dumbledore agrees to guard this unbelievably powerful object at the school, layers it in a gauntlet of protections, and then, somehow, an 11-year-old ends up facing Voldemort in the final chamber. No teachers. No backup. Just Harry, Quirrell, and a Dark Lord literally stuck to the back of a head. Now, Dumbledore is not clueless here. He knows someone is after the stone. He knows Voldemort is still out there. Hagrid just happens to mention Gringotts. The trio just happens to see the package removed. Fluffy just happens to be stationed behind a door that a curious first year can stumble onto by getting lost. It's all seemingly random, but the pattern is a little too convenient, right? I want to be clear about what I mean by that. I'm not saying Dumbledore sits down and scripts every corridor Harry walks down. But he allows a trail of clues to exist, a kind of narrative breadcrumb trail that practically begs 3 smart, reckless first years to investigate. And crucially, he never sits Harry down to say, by the way, there is a fragment of Voldemort attached to your defense teacher, and if you go poking around, you could die. Instead, his warning is vague. Don't go looking for trouble. He never explains what the stone actually is, what true immortality would mean, or why this bit of magic is so catastrophically dangerous. He trusts that Harry's instincts and ultimately Harry's love for others will steer him correctly if he ends up in front of that mirror. Later, Dumbledore gives us the explanation. The protections on the stone are designed so that only someone who wanted to find it but not use it could get it. That's a very specific moral lock. It's not keyed to age or magical power or experience. It's keyed to a particular kind of self-denial that Dumbledore has already seen in Harry, specifically from the Mirror of Erised scene. I'd also argue that this is Dumbledore's first big experiment with Harry as a subject. He withholds key information, creates a controlled but real mortal threat, and then watches what Harry chooses to do. Does he go for glory? Does he grab power? Or does he prioritize stopping Voldemort over his own survival? For Dumbledore, that data is important. And once we see it that way, the whole climax of the first book stops being just a fun kid's adventure and starts looking like a prototype. A trial run for a much darker plan, where Harry's courage, his choices, and even his willingness to die are going to be tested again. Only next time, the test won't end with a few days in the hospital wing. Because if this is how Dumbledore designs a first-year exam, what does his final exam look like? If Dumbledore's final exam is death itself, then one of the earliest test papers he quietly slides across Harry's desk is a Christmas present, wrapped in silver paper, left at the foot of his bed, and containing one of the most powerful artifacts in the entire story. Let's dive into it. The invisibility cloak. We're told in Philosopher's Stone that it belonged to James Potter, that Dumbledore had it in his possession before Godric's Hollow, and that he simply thought Harry might like it back. That sounds sweet. It's also a massive omission. Because, by Dumbledore's own later admission, he already suspected this wasn't just any invisibility item at all. He thought it was the cloak. The Peverell cloak. The third Deathly Hallow from the children's tale. A legendary piece of magic that doesn't fray, doesn't weaken, and doesn't rely on a charm you can just finite away. In other words, the kind of thing a headmaster and former friend of Grindelwald might be very, very interested in. I want to be clear about what I mean by suspected. Dumbledore doesn't have a little label on it saying property of death, but he's the one who connects Ignotus Peverell to the cloak. He's the one who later tracks the wand and the stone. This is a man who has spent decades obsessing over Hallows lore, specifically with another dark wizard who wanted to use them to rule. So when he borrows James's cloak, keeps it, survives the Potter's murder, and then returns it to Harry years later, he's doing that with all of that context in his head. And then, for 6 whole school years, he watches Harry use it. Sneaking to the restricted section, visiting Hogsmeade, hiding from Snape, escaping the Ministry. Not once does he sit Harry down and say, by the way, that heirloom might be one of the 3 most important objects in wizarding history. No explanation of the Hallows myth, no discussion of what it means to master death, just a kindly note and a twinkle. Why? We actually have a few options here, none of them entirely comfortable. One is that he wants Harry to value it as a practical tool, not as a power object. If Harry grows up thinking of the cloak as useful for not getting caught, he's less likely to chase an abstract quest for unbeatable magic. Given how the Elder Wand ruined Dumbledore's youth, that's not nothing. But I'd also argue that there's something more self-serving. Keeping Harry ignorant keeps him predictable. A boy who doesn't know he owns a Hallow is less likely to go hunting for the others, less likely to veer off the Horcrux path Dumbledore has mapped out. Pattern interrupt. Imagine if Dumbledore had told 11-year-old Harry, you are a Potter, a Peverell, and the rightful master of a Deathly Hallow. Does Harry ever walk away from that? Or does he become exactly the kind of Hallows-obsessed teenager Dumbledore once was? If you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to think back through the books. Every moment Harry uses that cloak is Dumbledore silently testing how he handles invisible power. I'll let you guys be the judge of whether that's wise mentorship or quiet manipulation. Because when the Hallows finally crash into the plot of Deathly Hallows, this long silence stops being a quirky detail and becomes one of Dumbledore's most consequential omissions. And the cloak is only the beginning of what he chooses not to say. And a cloak is only the beginning of what he chooses not to say. Because once we get to Harry's second year, Dumbledore graduates from leaving out context to something much sharper, standing back while a literal monster stalks the school. Let's dive into it. The Chamber of Secrets. The book gives us one of the most horror-tinged plots in the series. The chamber reopens, blood on the walls, students and even a cat lying petrified in the corridors, and Harry hearing a disembodied voice promising murder drifting through the stone. We, as readers, know this is the basilisk, but inside the story, only one person is clearly connected to that voice. The boy who can hear snakes in the walls. I want to be clear about what I mean by Dumbledore's silence here. We're not talking about him missing clues. He sees Harry's parseltongue in the dueling club. He knows the school thinks Harry is Slytherin's heir. He almost certainly knows about the mysterious diary that seems to be rewriting Ginny Weasley from the inside. Because this is the same headmaster who later pieces together that Tom Riddle's diary was more than a diary at a glance. And yet, how many direct, honest conversations does he have with Harry about any of this? Basically none. Instead, we get vague encouragement, gentle looks, a sentence or two about not being afraid to ask for help. It's comforting, but it's not information. And that missing information really matters, because by half-blood Prince Dumbledore is casually giving us a full explanation of Horcruxes and explicitly calling the diary a prototype. That strongly implies he at least suspects, in chamber, that this object tied to Tom Riddle's teenage self is something far darker than a cursed notebook. He just never shares the word Horcrux with 12-year-old Harry. Now, you could argue that's age-appropriate. Does a second year need a crash course in soul magic? Maybe not. But I'd also argue that sending that same second year into the chamber with only Ron and a memory-wiped Gilderoy Lockhart is a choice. At the moment of crisis, when Ginny is taken, there is no adult backup, no plan, no explanation of what might be waiting down there. Harry doesn't know it's a basilisk until he's staring into those eyes through Fawkes's convenient intervention. This is where the pattern really starts to solidify. Dumbledore is removed from the school, but still quietly collecting intel through Fawkes, through the diary, through his own knowledge of Tom Riddle's past. Harry, meanwhile, is walking into a life-or-death duel with Voldemort's preserved teenage shade, underinformed and alone. Is that faith in Harry's courage, or calculated risk because Dumbledore needs to see what the diary does when confronted? I'll let you guys be the judge, but once we remember how early Dumbledore is willing to let Harry face lethal danger without a full explanation, his later choices about prophecies, Horcruxes, and planned sacrifice start to look a lot less like one-off mistakes, and a lot more like a strategy. And the chamber is not the only time he does this. And the chamber is not the only time he does this, because if we jump forward just one book, we hit one of the strangest examples of Dumbledore's tell them just enough strategy, the Time Turner. Let's dive into it. In Prisoner of Azkaban, the setup looks innocent enough. McGonagall quietly arranges a time turner so Hermione can take extra classes. It's played almost like a nerdy academic perk, but Dumbledore is clearly in on it. The device has to be authorized at the highest level, and he later treats its existence like a card he's been keeping up his sleeve. When Sirius is sentenced to the Dementor's kiss and Buckbeak is supposedly executed, Dumbledore doesn't whip out some grand spell. He nudges. 3 turns should do it, you must not be seen. Cryptic hints, not a full briefing. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. He doesn't sit Harry down and say, here are the rules of time travel, here are the paradoxes, here is what happens if you break them. He doesn't even explain the basic logic of causal loops. Instead, Hermione becomes the gatekeeper. She's had the safety lecture from McGonagall off-screen, she holds the device, she controls when they use it. And Harry is basically along for the ride, interpreting Dumbledore's seemingly convenient instructions on the fly. This is very different from how he treats other pieces of world-shaking magic later in the story. Think about Horcruxes. Dumbledore suspects them for years, actually finds and destroys one, and still gives Harry only fragments of the explanation until Half-Blood Prince, when it's almost too late to ask questions. Or the Deathly Hallows, Dumbledore owns the Elder Wand, borrows the invisibility cloak for years, recognizes it as a Hallow, and yet never clearly tells Harry that there is a trio of legendary objects that could change the entire war. So, why is a time machine okay at 13? But the full truth about Horcruxes or Hallows is somehow too dangerous at 16 or 17? I'd also argue that the Time Turner sequence quietly reveals Dumbledore's criteria. He will allow access to incredibly dangerous magic if it serves his immediate goals, and if he believes the trio's moral compass will keep it in check. Saving Buckbeak and Sirius fits his agenda, the loop has already happened, and he trusts Hermione to follow the rules. The risk is contained, so he greenlights it. But when the magic would force Harry to confront his own fate, when the explanation might let Harry refuse the role of sacrificial weapon, suddenly Dumbledore's standards change. He talks about love in broad terms instead of saying, "You are a Horcrux." He hints about the Hallows instead of admitting he once chased them like Grindelwald. If you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to notice how his silences cluster around Harry's potential death. So here's the uncomfortable question. If Dumbledore trusted 13-year-old Harry and Hermione not to break time itself, why couldn't he trust 16 or 17-year-old Harry with the full truth about his own life and death? I'll let you guys be the judge, but Dumbledore's answer to that might be the darkest secret of all. And nowhere is that darkest secret energy stronger than in Goblet of Fire, where Dumbledore quite literally watches Harry walk into a fire he knows is coming. The Triwizard Year is the first time the story stops being school hijinks with a side of danger and becomes an outright death tournament. So let's dive into it. Harry's name comes out of the goblet he never entered, and yet Dumbledore's official response is basically, "Sorry kid, binding magical contract, guess you're competing." I want to be clear about what I mean by that. He doesn't just reluctantly accept the rules, he leans on them. He tells Harry there's no way around it, even though this is the same wizard who bends ministry regulations for breakfast. And Dumbledore is not fooled for a second. A mysterious fourth champion is a gigantic red flag. Fake Moody shows up the same year. Death Eaters have already attacked the World Cup. Dumbledore actually says in the book that someone must have wanted Harry in the tournament. That is a murder plot spelled out in plain English. But instead of pulling every possible alarm, he lets the tournament proceed with mild extra supervision. What he does give Harry is just enough information to survive, and that pattern is important. Before the first task, he doesn't sit Harry down and explain the full security nightmare he suspects. He lets Hagrid and Moody accidentally show Harry the dragons. Before the second task, he doesn't explain the depth of the political stakes, he just allows Dobby to deliver gillyweed. Even in the maze, he doesn't warn Harry that the cup itself could be tampered with. It's like Dumbledore is drip-feeding survival tips while carefully avoiding the word conspiracy. Here's the pattern interrupt. Imagine if Dumbledore had simply cancelled the final task. The entire climax of the book evaporates. No Portkey Cup, no graveyard, no reborn Voldemort. And that's exactly why, I'd also argue, he doesn't cancel it. He needs to know. Rumours, dark marks at the Quidditch World Cup, and a missing Bertha Jorkins are one thing. A resurrected Dark Lord with a body is another. When Harry comes back from the graveyard, Dumbledore isn't surprised. Horrified, yes, but not confused. He believes Harry instantly. No interrogation, no Veritaserum, no "are you sure it was Voldemort?" He pivots straight into mobilization, securing Harry, confronting Fudge, summoning the Old Order. That speed suggests he had been gaming out this exact outcome. So we end up with a brutal kind of logic. Dumbledore lets a 14-year-old compete in a lethal tournament knowing someone wants him dead, because the same plot that endangers Harry might finally confirm Voldemort's return. Harry gets incomplete knowledge, Voldemort gets exactly the ritual he wants, and Dumbledore gets the proof he needs. I'll let you guys be the judge of whether that trade is defensible. But this is where the weapon idea really starts. And in the next section, we'll see how Dumbledore doubles down on that once Voldemort is back in the open and the prophecy finally comes into play, and this is where Dumbledore's weapon really starts to feel like a lonely kid. Because once Voldemort is back and the prophecy is in play, Dumbledore doesn't just keep secrets from Harry, he removes himself almost entirely. Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive into Dumbledore's very complicated brand of protection. In Order of the Phoenix, the story gives us one of the strangest tonal shifts in the entire series. Harry finally has proof he was right about Voldemort. The war is starting, and yet the one adult he trusts most suddenly won't even look at him. All year, Dumbledore avoids eye contact in the Great Hall, disappears from Hogwarts for long stretches, and pointedly keeps Harry out of order meetings at Grimmauld Place. Harry hears whispers stop when he walks into rooms. He's banned from the grown-up conversations about Voldemort's plans, about the weapon at the Ministry, about anything that might actually help him make sense of his connection to Voldemort. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. This isn't just a busy headmaster. This is strategic silence. At the end of the book, in that office scene after Sirius's death, we finally get the explanation. Dumbledore admits he feared Voldemort would use the connection between their minds to possess Harry, or at least spy through him. If Dumbledore spent time with Harry, if he looked him in the eye, Voldemort might see what Dumbledore was planning. So the solution is to cut off contact. No eye contact, no real letters, no honest conversations. On paper, the magic logic sort of tracks. But emotionally, it's brutal. Because by cutting Harry off, both emotionally and informationally, Dumbledore actually makes him easier to manipulate. Harry is angry, isolated, desperate to feel useful. So when he gets that vision of Sirius being tortured in the Department of Mysteries, there's no solid foundation of trust to counter it. No habit of Dumbledore explaining things. No real training in how Voldemort might plant fake images. Just a 15-year-old who's been told you're the weapon but not given the manual. And this is where the trade-off really bites. Dumbledore could have told Harry more about occlumency before dumping him into Snape's half-hearted lessons. He could have explained the prophecy in broad strokes, or at least warned him that Voldemort might use their link to lure him into traps. Instead, he decides not to overburden Harry. I'd also argue that this is one of the most important, seemingly convenient decisions in the whole book, because it keeps the plot moving toward the Ministry while still letting Dumbledore claim he was protecting Harry. The irony, of course, is devastating. In trying to shield Harry by withholding information and affection, Dumbledore directly contributes to Sirius's death and to Harry's spiral of guilt afterward. I'll let you guys be the judge of whether that's defensible wisdom or a massive moral failure, but it sets the tone for everything that follows. In the next section, we'll see how that same instinct to hold back shapes what Dumbledore reveals about the prophecy itself, and what he still refuses to say about the endgame. So up to this point in the story, we've seen a pretty clear pattern. Dumbledore withholds critical information, lets Harry walk straight into lethal situations, and then explains it afterward as necessary, almost inevitable, for the greater good of the war. He withholds the truth about the Dursleys, about the prophecy, about what the Order is actually doing, and even about how badly Voldemort wants to use Harry's mind against him. And for the most part, the book presents this as wise mentorship. Painful, yes, but wise. Dumbledore is the brilliant chess master, and Harry is the brave but inexperienced piece on the board. The question we're asking in this video is, at what point does that stop being strategy and start being betrayal? When does I know more than you become, I've taken away your right to choose? I want to be clear about what I mean by betrayal here, because this is important for everything that comes next. We're not saying Dumbledore has to narrate every risk like a safety briefing. Wartime leadership always involves secrets. But secrecy crosses a moral line when it removes Harry's ability to give informed consent about risks to his own life and, in this magic-heavy world, to his own soul. If Harry can't possibly understand what he's gambling, then his bravery starts to look less like heroism and more like manipulation. Specifically, think about the occlumency fiasco we just covered. Harry isn't told how dangerous the mental connection is, how much Voldemort might exploit it, or how much Sirius could be put at risk. He's told, learn this skill, not your godfather may die if you fail. That's not just a missing detail, that's a missing choice. Now, I'd also argue that this isn't as simple as Dumbledore bad, Harry victim. There are real grey areas here. Harry is a minor for most of the series, he is uniquely targeted by Voldemort, and the adults around him are fighting a genocidal dark wizard with a track record of murdering children. In that context, how much information is too much? How much trauma do you hand to a 15-year-old and still call it protection? And then there's the unpredictability factor. Dumbledore can't foresee every plot twist. He doesn't know exactly when Voldemort will strike, or how the prophecy will play out, or what the Hallows will tempt Harry to do. Sometimes what looks like a plot hole in Dumbledore's logic is actually the book showing us a very old man improvising under impossible pressure. But from here on, let's dive into it with that ethical line in mind. Did this secret stop Harry from giving real, informed consent about what he was risking? I'll let you guys be the judge with each new revelation. Was Dumbledore protecting Harry, protecting the overall war effort, or just protecting his own conscience from having to say the quiet part out loud? Because in the next phase of the video, we're going to look at where Dumbledore actually learned this habit. His past with Grindelwald, Ariana, and Aberforth isn't just sad backstory. It's the origin point of his belief that terrible choices can be justified in the name of the greater good, and it casts a very different shadow over every secret he keeps from Harry afterward. So let's talk about the summer that breaks everything. Before we dive in, we have to leave Harry behind for a second and go back to Godric's Hollow. Long before Voldemort, long before the boy who lived. Teenage Albus Dumbledore has just lost his mother. He's brilliant, furious at his circumstances, and stuck at home caring for a traumatized younger sister. And then Gellert Grindelwald arrives next door like something out of a different story entirely. This is the Godric's Hollow summer. Two prodigies meet, recognize each other instantly, and start building a shared dream. Not a nice dream either. We're told in the book that together they sketch out a new order where wizards will rule over muggles for the greater good. It's intoxicating. It's also, if we're being honest, the exact kind of cold-blooded logic we usually associate with Voldemort, just wrapped in prettier words. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. Dumbledore isn't yet the kindly headmaster. He's a teenager who actually thinks wizard dominance might be justified if it prevents future wars. Grindelwald pushes the idea, but Albus doesn't walk away. He helps. They plan, they talk Hallows, they talk revolution, and they talk about using Ariana's condition as a sort of tragic justification. That's the plot hole in Dumbledore's self-mythology. The great defender of muggles once drafted blueprints for their subjugation. And crucially, he never tells Harry any of this. Not one word. Harry doesn't hear it from the man himself in a quiet, honest moment in the office. He hears it from Rita Skeeter's sensational biography and from Aberforth's bitter rant in the Hog's Head. Our main source is a tabloid and an angry brother, which is a wildly unstable way to learn the most important moral failure of your mentor's life. The turning point, of course, is the three-way duel. Aberforth confronts Grindelwald, Albus jumps in, curses fly, and Ariana is killed. None of them even knows whose spell did it. Dumbledore later admits at King's Cross that this is the moment that shatters him, that he was tempted by power and proved himself unworthy. From then on, he's terrified of being trusted with unchecked authority. And this is where everything starts to click. His refusal to seize the ministry, his insistence on staying at Hogwarts slightly off to the side of power, his maddening reluctance to give Harry a clear explanation of the Deathly Hallows, even though he literally owns the Elder Wand and has held Harry's cloak for years. It all comes from that summer. He knows what happens when Albus Dumbledore starts thinking in grand designs. I'd also argue that this is why he keeps Harry at arm's length emotionally. Silence isn't just strategic, it's self-protection. If he tells Harry the full story, Harry might notice how young Dumbledore once sounded an awful lot like Voldemort. And if Harry notices that, what does it say about the plan Dumbledore is quietly building around him now? I'll let you guys be the judge of that, because in the next section we're going to ask a much darker question. When Dumbledore looked at Harry, did he see a child to protect or a weapon to aim? And that question gets a lot harder once we factor in the single most painful secret Dumbledore is carrying, Ariana. If we want to understand why he hides so much from Harry, we have to go back to the day his little sister died in a three-way duel that should never have happened. So let's dive into it. We know the rough outline from the book. Teenage Albus, newly brilliant and newly arrogant, falls in with Grindelwald. They dream up that for the greater good plan, and Aberforth finally snaps, calling Albus out for abandoning their damaged sister. Wands are drawn, tempers explode, and suddenly we have Albus, Aberforth and Grindelwald all firing curses in a cramped room while Arina is nearby. One stray spell, no one knows whose, hits her. She dies on the spot. In terms of emotional stakes, it's arguably the most important moment in Dumbledore's entire life, and the magic of that scene is pure chaos rather than tidy dual logic. I want to be clear about what I mean by secret here. Dumbledore never sits Harry down and tells him this story, not once. Instead, Harry gets a sensationalized, half-true version from Rita Skeeter's book, painting Dumbledore as a cold, ambitious user who locked his sister away. Then he gets Aberforth's raw, furious version in the Hog's Head, full of grief and blame. Dumbledore's own explanation? It never comes in person. Only in the King's Cross chapter, after everything, do we get a brief, almost clinical admission. And that gap matters. Because during Deathly Hallows, when Harry is reading Skeeter and then standing in front of Aberforth, he's suddenly wondering if he ever actually knew the man who guided his entire childhood. Was Dumbledore just another Grindelwald in training? Did he cover up manslaughter? Did he lie about who he really was while asking Harry for absolute trust? You can feel Harry's crisis of faith building in those scenes, and I'd also argue that this is where Dumbledore's secrecy almost breaks the story's internal logic. Our hero is following a plan designed by someone he no longer understands. We also have to connect this back to an earlier, seemingly small moment. Dumbledore telling Harry he avoids the Mirror of Erist because he sees himself holding a pair of thick woolen socks. Later, we find out that was a lie. What he really sees is his family alive and whole. Ariana restored. That is his deepest unhealed regret, and it quietly explains why he never trusted himself with power again. From there, the explanation for his later choices gets darker. Ariana's death convinces Dumbledore that his youthful hunger for power helped create Voldemort's war. So when the prophecy appears, he treats the entire conflict as something he personally set in motion. Sacrificing himself on the astronomy tower, allowing Snape to kill him, is, in his mind, a kind of penance. And designing a path where Harry might have to die? That's the final extension of For the Greater Good, now turned inward. He believes he owes the world that victory, even if it costs the life of the boy he loves. Hey everyone, welcome to another uncomfortable realization about how far Dumbledore is willing to go. Because in the next section, we're going to look at how that same guilt shapes his silence around the Deathly Hallows themselves, and why he lets Harry walk blind into the legend of the Elder Wand. And that brings us to the quietest, most explosive secret of all. For most of Harry's life, The man warning him about the dangers of power is secretly holding the magical equivalent of a loaded nuke. Let's dive into it. In 1945, Dumbledore duels Grindelwald, defeats him and takes the Elder Wand. From that moment on, he is the wand's master, not just a great wizard with a good wand, but the owner of the most powerful wand ever created. And he keeps that fact hidden for decades. No grand announcement. No entry in notable magical artifacts I definitely own. Just Dumbledore, twinkly-eyed, pretending his wand is nothing special. I want to be clear about what I mean by hidden here. It's not just that he doesn't advertise it to the Daily Prophet. He doesn't tell the Order. He doesn't tell McGonagall. He definitely doesn't tell Harry. Even when they're in Half-Blood Prince, literally dissecting Voldemort's Horcrux logic together, talking about wand cores and magical limits, Dumbledore never once says, by the way, the wand I'm waving around while we plan your possible death? It's the Elder Wand. And yet, he continues to present himself as the reluctant leader. The man who learned to fear his own power. The headmaster who turns down Minister of Magic offers because he supposedly doesn't trust himself with authority. On the surface, that's noble. But it sits in really weird tension with the image of him calmly wielding the deadliest wand in history for 50 years. If you truly fear power, is that the tool you keep in your back pocket? Pattern interrupt for a second. Imagine Deathly Hallows if Harry actually knew what he was looking at. Imagine 6th year Harry realizing that the wand on Dumbledore's desk is the Elder Wand from the tale he grew up with. Does he still walk into Ollivander's later, acting like the Hallows are brand new information? The story kind of needs his ignorance, and Dumbledore quietly supplies it. At King's Cross, we finally get Dumbledore's own explanation. He admits that as a young man, he and Grindelwald dreamed of the Hallows, and that he was unworthy to unite them. He knew he could not be trusted with all three, so he tried to treat the Elder Wand as just a tool, not a symbol. Use it for good, lock away the legend, never chase the cloak or the stone again. On paper, that sounds like growth. I'd also argue that it's still another attempt to control the narrative by controlling information. Because here's the irony. His silence about the wand's history doesn't kill the legend. It lets it fester underground. When Xenophilius finally info-dumps the Deathly Hallows story, Harry and Voldemort both become obsessed, but with incomplete data. Voldemort fixates on raw power. Harry fixates on beating that power. And the final battle stakes hinge on a plot hole, adjacent problem. Nobody fully understands the Elder Wand's allegiance, because the one man who actually could have explained it chose not to. I'll let you guys be the judge of whether that's wisdom or cruelty, but in the next section we need to look at the other Hallow Dumbledore kept from Harry much more literally. The Resurrection Stone hidden in plain sight. So now that we've talked about the Elder Wand, we have to talk about the bigger, stranger secret wrapped around it. The fact that Dumbledore introduces the Deathly Hallows to Harry as a bedtime story, and then refuses to admit they're real. This is one of those moments where the magic and the logic of the book start pulling in opposite directions, so let's dive into it. We all remember the tale of the three brothers. Three wizards try to cheat death, and death rewards them with three powerful objects. The unbeatable Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone that can call back the dead, and the invisibility cloak that hides you even from death itself. In the story, the first two brothers die because of arrogance and obsession. The third survives because he uses the cloak wisely and greets death as an old friend. Dumbledore's involvement is subtle but important. He leaves Hermione the tales of Beedle the Bard in his will, and he has literally drawn the Hallows symbol next to that story, practically screaming, "Pay attention to this one." I want to be clear about what I mean by that. Dumbledore is not vaguely curious about a fairy tale. He knows the Hallows are actually real. He has possessed the Elder Wand for decades. He's had James Potter's invisibility cloak for years, recognizes it as the third Hallow, and returns it to Harry without a full explanation. By Deathly Hallows, he also strongly suspects Voldemort is obsessed with the Elder Wand. So he knows Harry already has one Hallow, he knows Voldemort is hunting another, and he still never sits Harry down and says, "Here's the full story, here's what these things do, and here's how they intersect with Horcruxes." Instead, he leaves a trail of seemingly convenient clues and lets Harry, Ron, and Hermione piece it together while camping. And when we finally get the big explanation at King's Cross, his reason is chillingly simple. He admits that if he had told Harry about the Hallows too early, Harry might have chased them instead of Horcruxes, repeating Dumbledore's own youthful mistake with Grindelwald. The Hallows once tempted Dumbledore into putting power and cleverness above morality, and he's terrified Harry will do the same. I'd also argue that this is where the cost of his secrecy really shows. For most of the book, Harry is torn between two quests: destroy Horcruxes like Dumbledore said, or pursue the Hallows that might actually let him survive. He has no clear guidance from the one person who understands both systems of magic. That confusion isn't just emotional, it drives the plot. Harry nearly abandons the Horcrux hunt to look for the Elder Wand, and the story frames this as a real temptation. So was it truly safer to let Harry stumble into the Hallows truth piece by piece, or would honest mentorship from the start have prevented the very obsession Dumbledore feared? I'll let you guys be the judge, but in the next section we need to look at how this same pattern of half-truths turns deadly when we get to the Resurrection Stone and Dumbledore's plan for Harry's death. And that brings us to the really wild part of all this for most of the story. Dumbledore isn't just hiding one secret from Harry, he's sitting on the full Deathly Hallows endgame, while Harry is still worrying about homework and Quidditch. Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive into the messy, brilliant logic of Dumbledore's choices. We've talked about the temptation of the Hallows in theory, but now we need to pin down what Dumbledore actually knew and when, because the timeline here quietly turns him into the only person playing the whole board. Let's start with the cloak. James lends Dumbledore his invisibility cloak sometime before Godric's Hollow. Dumbledore claims he just wanted to examine it. That's a huge tell. This is a man who's seen every standard disillusionment charm and school-issue cloak on Earth. The fact that he singles this one out, keeps it for years, and can't reproduce its magic strongly suggests he recognizes it as a Hallow-level artifact, even if the word Hallow isn't front and center yet. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. I'm not saying Dumbledore has a laminated Deathly Hallows instruction manual in his desk, but he absolutely knows this cloak is ancient, uniquely powerful, and linked to the old Peverell legends. He traces Harry's family, he knows Ignotus Peverell's grave is in Godric's Hollow, and he still chooses to leave the cloak with himself when the Potters go into hiding. Then Conveniently, it's waiting for Harry in Year 1, with no explanation of its true nature. Fast forward to the Gaunt Shack. By Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore finds the ring, recognizes the Peverell crest, and realizes the stone is the Resurrection Stone. At this moment, the Hallows aren't just folklore anymore. They're real objects he can touch. And yet he puts it on anyway. He uses it recklessly, longing to see his family, and curses himself in the process. This is the same ultra-cautious chessmaster who lectures Harry about prudence, and he's undone by the exact temptation he later warns Harry about. And over all of this, since 1945, Dumbledore has been the master of the Elder Wand. He defeats Grindelwald, takes the wand, studies it, and keeps it. So by the time he's wearing the ring and borrowing the cloak, he has, in practice, all 3 Hallows under his control or within reach. For decades, he's the only living wizard who understands that the fairy tale is a user manual for the deepest magic in the book. Now map that against Harry. Harry knows nothing until the Beedle the Bard story in Deathly Hallows. Then he gets fragmented hints, the symbol at the wedding, Xenophilius's rant, Dumbledore's cryptic gifts. His realization that the cloak, the stone, and the Elder Wand are real comes in a rushed, desperate moment in the forest long after Dumbledore is gone. I'd also argue that this is the core asymmetry of the entire plot. Dumbledore has near-complete meta-knowledge and drip-feeds Harry only what serves the plan. Is that wise mentorship or narrative-level manipulation? I'll let you guys be the judge, but in the next section we need to ask how this Hallows timeline collides with Dumbledore's other secret, that Harry himself is carrying a piece of Voldemort's soul. And that brings us straight to the darkest category of Dumbledore's secrets. Not Hallows. Horcruxes, because if the Hallows are the shiny mythic side of the endgame, Horcruxes are the gruesome engine underneath, and Dumbledore keeps Harry in the dark about them for years. Before we dive in, I want to be clear about what I mean by Horcrux here. In universe, a Horcrux is an object that contains a fragment of someone's soul, torn off through murder and bound with extremely dark magic so the creator can survive even if their body is destroyed. It's not just a cursed object, it's literally a backup life. The book hints this is considered so vile that it's almost unspeakable, which is why even Slughorn tries to bury the term. Now, importantly, Dumbledore doesn't discover Horcruxes in Half-Blood Prince. He suspects them incredibly early. The diary in Chamber of Secrets is our first big clue. A teenage memory that can possess Ginny, open the chamber, and almost resurrect Tom Riddle? That's not a normal cursed notebook. Dumbledore quietly files that away as evidence that Voldemort did something far worse than standard dark arts. Then, as we later see through the Gaunt memories, he learns about Tom's obsession with trophies, his fixation on the number 7, and his interest in splitting the soul. At that point the logic is pretty clear. Voldemort isn't just hard to kill, he's deliberately unkillable. But does Dumbledore sit Harry down in 3rd year and say, Voldemort anchored his soul in objects, here's how this magic works, start looking? Not at all. Instead, he waits until Half-Blood Prince to even say the word Horcrux to Harry, and even then, the lesson is extremely curated. We get a carefully chosen set of memories, Hokey, Morphin, Slughorn, the orphanage, the Gaunts. It's like a highlight reel of Tom's descent. Helpful, yes, but still only what Dumbledore wants Harry to see. And notice what's missing. He never fully spells out his theory about the number and identity of the Horcruxes. He strongly suspects the diary, the ring, the locket, the cup, something of Ravenclaws or Gryffindors, Nagini, and possibly Harry himself. Yet in the pensive lectures, he keeps it vague, talking about at least 4, and I think and I believe. For someone who's supposedly training the Chosen One for the final battle, that's a lot of hedging. Here's the pattern interrupt: Dumbledore only has the Horcrux talk once he's already dying. The cursed ring has doomed him, the plan with Snape on the astronomy tower is in motion, and suddenly he decides, yes, now is the time to outsource the entire endgame to a teenager. With incomplete intel, we can admire the narrative drama of Harry piecing it together on the fly, but in-universe. Is that remotely responsible? I'd also argue that this is where the for the greater good side of Dumbledore comes through most clearly. By withholding full information, he keeps Harry moving along a very specific track towards sacrificial death, while preserving deniability. If Harry knew in 5th year that he was likely a Horcrux, would he have trained differently? Would the Order have organized a coordinated Horcrux hunt instead of a last-minute scramble that costs Mad-Eye, Dobby, Fred, and so many others their lives? Could earlier, more complete honesty about the nature and number of Horcruxes have allowed everyone to prepare better? Or would that knowledge have broken Harry too soon? I'll let you guys be the judge. But to answer it, we now have to look at the one Horcrux Dumbledore never names out loud. The piece of Voldemort living inside Harry himself. To answer that, we have to go back before the tower, before Draco, before the unforgivable. We have to go to a crumbling shack and a cursed ring. This is the moment where Dumbledore quietly starts planning his own death and decides that almost no one, especially not Harry, gets the full explanation. Dumbledore tracks down the Gaunt shack and finds Marvolo Gaunt's ring, which is secretly both a Horcrux and the Resurrection Stone. And here's where his brilliance and his deepest flaw collide. He knows it's a Horcrux. He destroys Horcruxes. That part of the story actually follows the logic we expect. But he also recognizes the Hallows symbol, realizes this is the stone he's been obsessed with since Grindelwald, and in a single, selfish moment he puts the ring on, hoping to see his family again. The curse hits instantly. Snape later tells Harry that Dumbledore had about a year to live from that point. So from roughly the start of Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore is a dead man walking, and he knows it. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. Every lesson with Harry, every cave trip, every seemingly convenient delay in revealing the full truth is happening under a literal countdown. This is when he brings Snape in. In that office scene we only fully understand through the pensieve. Dumbledore shows Snape the blackened hand, explains the curse, and then lays out the plan for the astronomy tower. Snape must keep him alive as long as possible, but when the time comes, Snape is to kill him. Not just to spare Dumbledore pain, but to save Draco from becoming a murderer and to control the Elder Wand's allegiance. I'd also argue that this is one of the wildest pieces of long-term wand logic in the entire book. Dumbledore is planning not just his death, but who the wand will choose after. And who does he tell about this? Not the Order. Not McGonagall. Definitely not Harry. Everyone is left to see only the surface. Snape casting Avada Kedavra, Dumbledore falling, the dark mark overhead. From their point of view, it's the ultimate betrayal. The story never pauses to give them an alternate explanation, because Dumbledore has designed it so that explanation only arrives after his portrait is on the wall. For Harry, the fallout is brutal. His hatred of Snape hardens into something almost absolute. His trust in Dumbledore's judgment, already shaken by the prophecy and the Dursleys, takes another hit. How could Dumbledore have been so wrong about Snape? How many of his other choices were built on sand? Those questions drive a lot of Harry's anger in Deathly Hallows, and they only start to crack when he sees Snape's memories. So this is one of Dumbledore's most controversial secrets. He orchestrates his own murder, lets the world believe in a traitor, and uses Harry's pain as part of the plan. Necessary sacrifice or manipulative cruelty disguised as strategy? I'll let you guys be the judge, but to answer that, we have to look at the next, even darker secret Dumbledore keeps about Harry's own survival. And that brings us to the other half of that darkness, Snape. Because if Dumbledore is willing to stage his own murder, what else is he willing to turn into a long game? In Snape's case, the answer is basically his entire life. Let's dive into it. To understand Dumbledore's secret alliance with Snape, we have to rewind way before Harry is even born. Snape grows up in the same town as Lily Evans, falls in love with her, and then, in a mix of bitterness and desperation, drifts toward the Death Eaters. He joins Voldemort. He hears part of Trelawney's prophecy and runs straight to his master with it, and only when he realizes that prophecy has painted a target on Lily and her child does he panic and beg Dumbledore for help. I want to be clear about what I mean by panic here. Snape isn't having a moral awakening about the wizarding world. He is specifically horrified that Lily might die. That's the leverage Dumbledore uses. He agrees to protect the Potters as best he can, but in exchange he recruits Snape as a double agent embedded inside Voldemort's circle. This is one of the most important strategic moves in the entire story, and Harry is told none of it. From Harry's point of view, Snape is just the greasy, hostile potions teacher who seems to hate him on sight. The man who bullies Neville, sneers at Hermione, and appears at a Death Eater meeting in the opening chapters of the final book. We and Harry are pushed toward the seemingly obvious explanation: Snape is a villain. Dumbledore never corrects this. He never sits Harry down and says, "By the way, my most crucial spy is the guy you loathe." The real mission only comes into focus in that always memory sequence. After Dumbledore is cursed by the ring, he tells Snape the full truth: Harry carries a piece of Voldemort's soul and must die at the right moment. And Snape, horrified, asks, "You have kept him alive so that he can die at the proper moment?" Snape's Patronus, Stilado, proves his love for Lily never faded, and yet he agrees to keep protecting Harry, just so Harry can walk willingly to his own death. We don't learn this from dialogue or a convenient monologue. We only get it after Snape dies, when Harry collects his tears and dives into the Pensieve. If you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to notice how every major revelation about Snape is delayed until it can no longer help Harry emotionally, only tactically. And that's where Dumbledore's secrecy really bites. He's willing to let Harry hate one of his most loyal allies, because the hatred keeps the cover intact and the plot hole of why doesn't Voldemort suspect Snape neatly sealed. I'd also argue that this retroactively reframes Dumbledore himself as someone who treats people and their pain as pieces on a chessboard. But if that's how he handles Snape, What does that say about what he's been hiding about Harry's own survival and the Horcrux inside him? That's the next secret we need to unpack. If Snape is a chess piece, Harry is the king Dumbledore is willing to sacrifice. And nowhere is that clearer than with the single darkest secret in the story, Harry as a Horcrux. Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive into the strange mix of brilliance and cold-blooded calculation behind Dumbledore's choices. We've talked about his long game with Snape, but now we need to ask a much sharper question. When did Dumbledore actually realize that Harry was carrying a fragment of Voldemort's soul? I want to be clear about what I mean by realize here. Dumbledore doesn't wake up one morning with a neat label that says Harry Skult Horcrux. Instead, he's collecting clues. The failed killing curse at Godric's Hollow, Voldemort's inexplicable survival, Harry's lightning scar that physically hurts whenever Voldemort is near, and of course, Harry speaking Parseltongue in Chamber of Secrets. Each of those things has some possible explanation on its own. Put together, the magic and the logic start to point in one direction. And Dumbledore admits as much. At King's Cross, in Deathly Hallows, he tells Harry that by the time of the diary in Chamber of Secrets, and especially the ring Horcrux in Half-Blood Prince, he strongly suspected that Harry himself carried a piece of Voldemort's soul. That's not a late revelation. That's years of watching Harry's connection to Voldemort deepen and quietly deciding what that must mean. Here's the pattern interrupt, because this is the part people sometimes slide past. Once Dumbledore has that suspicion, he very deliberately does not investigate too closely. He doesn't run tests. He doesn't consult the Department of Mysteries. He doesn't even tell the Order. He basically chooses ignorance on purpose. Why? Because if he confirms Harry is a Horcrux, then the explanation becomes brutally simple. To destroy all the Horcruxes, Harry has to die. And if Dumbledore knows that for certain while he's alive, he has to treat Harry differently. He has to either confess the plan, which might change Harry's choices, or he has to consciously raise a child for slaughter, which even Dumbledore can't quite bear to name out loud. So instead, he walks this very thin line. He plans around the assumption that Harry must die at the right moment, but keeps just enough distance that he can tell himself he never absolutely knew. I'd also argue that this is where the ethics get really uncomfortable. Dumbledore builds the entire endgame of the book around Harry's eventual self-sacrifice without ever giving Harry a real chance to consent to that role. Harry walks into the forest believing he's improvising a heroic choice. In reality, he's following a path Dumbledore laid years earlier. So is this the moment where Dumbledore stops being a mentor and becomes a manipulator? Is choosing not to know, so you can keep using Harry, actually worse than knowing and telling him the truth? I'll let you guys be the judge, but we still haven't touched on one more giant omission, the Deathly Hallows themselves, and why Dumbledore buried that explanation until it was almost too late. And that almost too late timing really comes to a head in the Forbidden Forest. This is the payoff to every secret Dumbledore has ever kept, and it happens in one brutal sequence. Voldemort's ultimatum, Snape's memories, and Harry's walk into the dark. Let's dive into it. Voldemort gives Hogwarts an hour. Either Harry comes to die, or everyone else does. While that clock is ticking, Harry goes to the Pensieve and finally sees what Dumbledore has been hiding in Snape's mind for a year. He learns about the planned death on the astronomy tower, about Snape's promise to protect him, and most devastatingly, that he has to let Voldemort kill him because part of Voldemort's soul lives in his body. That's the "you were meant to be a pig for slaughter" moment. I want to be clear about what I mean by planned. Dumbledore doesn't script Harry's exact steps, but he absolutely scripts the information flow. Harry only discovers he's a Horcrux after the battle has already started, after friends have already died, and after there is literally a magical tyrant on the grounds with a countdown. It's technically a choice, but it's a choice inside a trap. And notice who doesn't talk here. The Dumbledore in the portrait, who we've seen give advice to Snape, stays silent. No helpful exposition. No last-minute reassurance. All of Harry's guidance comes indirectly, through Snape's memories and through choices Dumbledore made while he was alive, the occlumency lessons that failed, the way he groomed Snape as the messenger, the decision not to tell Harry about the Horcrux inside him in 6th year when there was still time to process it. I'd also argue that this timing is the most uncomfortable piece of Dumbledore's logic. By arranging it this way, he avoids years of Harry living under a death sentence. But he also ensures Harry learns the truth only when there's no time to overthink or run. Harry has minutes, maybe, between understanding I must die and walking into the forest. There's no long debate, no strategy meeting with the Order, no chance to ask, is there any other magic we haven't tried? So does that preserve free will? In a narrow technical sense, yes, Harry could refuse. He could hide under the invisibility cloak, flee with his friends, or even surrender. The book doesn't magically compel him. But in practice, his options are boxed in by the war, by the bodies in the Great Hall, and by Dumbledore's carefully engineered timing. If he wants his friends to live, if he wants Voldemort stopped tonight, he has to go. This is where every previous omission converges. The half-told prophecy, the vague talk about love without tactical explanation, the secrecy around Horcruxes and the Hallows, all funnel Harry toward one deadly decision he was never allowed to prepare for. And yet, even here, Dumbledore is still holding back one last piece of information about death itself. And that last missing piece finally drops in the strangest place possible. A glowing, empty King's Cross that might not even be real. Instead of blood and rubble, Harry wakes up to white mist, soft light, and the echo of a station that feels like the whole story has been put on pause. This is death, but it's also a timeout with your headmaster. And for once, Dumbledore is ready to talk. So let's dive into it. In this limbo-like version of King's Cross, Dumbledore appears almost peaceful, almost cleaned of all his earlier contradictions. Here, under that blinding white light, he starts listing the secrets we've been chasing for 6 books. He admits his terror of power after his friendship with Grindelwald and Ariana's death. He confesses that he was obsessed with the Deathly Hallows, specifically the Elder Wand, and that this obsession nearly ruined him. He reveals that he suspected Harry was carrying a piece of Voldemort's soul and still chose not to tell him outright. And he openly states that he never gave Harry the full explanation because he feared Harry would try to dodge the sacrifice the war required. I want to be clear about what I mean by admits here. Dumbledore doesn't just say, "Oops, my bad." He frames every secret as a tragic necessity. He tells Harry that his love for power made him untrustworthy with the Hallows, so he had to step back. He insists that if he had laid out the full prophecy, the Horcrux logic, and the Hallows back in Order of the Phoenix or Half-Blood Prince, he might have pushed Harry toward exactly the kind of reckless, glory-hunting behavior he was trying to avoid. In his explanation, the omissions become a kind of tough love strategy. But when we compare this self-portrait to the evidence we've seen, it gets a lot murkier. Dumbledore talks about fearing his own power, yet he still keeps the Elder Wand for decades. He claims he was protecting Harry from arrogance, but also leaves him with the Dursleys without any real magical protection training. He says he didn't want Harry tempted by the Hallows, but he also sends him the Snitch and the Deluminator and the Tales of Beedle the Bard, which is a very convenient breadcrumb trail. I'd also argue that the tone here flirts with post hoc justification. Dumbledore is deeply remorseful. Yes, he cries, he calls Harry a much better man than he is, and he fully owns the fact that he was raising Harry like a lamb to the slaughter. But remorse after the fact doesn't erase the manipulation baked into the plan. Harry has already walked into the forest and died before he ever gets this full download of information. And that's the chilling part. This King's Cross conversation is the only time Dumbledore speaks with complete honesty, without portraits, politics, or half-truths. It happens only once Harry has done exactly what Dumbledore needed him to do. I'll let you guys be the judge. Is that wisdom, or is that the neatest possible ending to a very messy pattern of control? Because when Harry goes back, the story still has one more test of Dumbledore's ethics waiting in the living world. So when Harry steps back out of King's Cross and into the forest, we're not just watching a brave moment. We're watching the final execution of a philosophy Dumbledore has been quietly engineering since Book 1. And to really see that, we have to talk about love, choice, and the way those ideas get turned into weapons. Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive into the slightly uncomfortable logic underneath Dumbledore's speeches. All the way through the story, he tells Harry that love is his greatest power, that it's ancient magic Voldemort can't understand. He talks about choice being more important than destiny, about how it's our choices that show what we truly are. It sounds beautiful. It's also incredibly convenient for a man who needs a boy to walk willingly to his own death. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. I'm not saying love and choice aren't real themes. I'm saying Dumbledore doesn't just admire those traits in Harry, he builds scenarios where Harry's only logical move is to act on them. Think about the Philosopher's Stone. 11-year-old Harry is sent past a gauntlet of teacher's magic with almost no explanation, because Dumbledore is away. The final protection is keyed, so that only someone who wants to find the stone but not use it can get it. Who does that describe more perfectly than the kid whose defining trait is selfless love? Then Chamber of Secrets doubles down. Harry goes after Ginny with no adult backup, no real plan, just loyalty and courage. Dumbledore rewards this by sending Fawkes and the sword, as if the castle itself is grading Harry's moral choices and handing out equipment. Again, the only viable path through the plot hole of why is a 12-year-old doing this alone is Harry's willingness to risk his life for someone else. Fast forward to the forest again. By this point, Dumbledore has known for years that Harry is carrying a piece of Voldemort's soul. He's also reasonably sure that Harry has to die to destroy it. Yet he never gives Harry a concrete alternative strategy. The plan is essentially raise a boy who will, when cornered, choose to lay down his life out of love. And Dumbledore is absolutely right about what Harry will do. So is that nurturing virtue or weaponizing it? I'd also argue that the answer depends on how you read those pensive conversations with Snape. The same man who tells Harry with poetic warmth that love is a power beyond any magic turns around and coldly calculates the timing of Harry's death. You have kept him alive so that he can die at the proper moment. That's not destiny talking. That's strategy. Here's the pattern interrupt. What if Dumbledore doesn't actually believe in Harry's freedom the way he says he does? What if he believes in probability? He knows Harry's moral instincts so well that they become a predictable variable in his war plan. He doesn't need to control Harry's choices if he can design the board so that every path Harry can live with leads to the same sacrificial square. I'll let you guys be the judge. Is that genuine faith in Harry's goodness, or is it emotional engineering? Because as we move into Dumbledore's secrets about the prophecy and the Hallows, this question only gets sharper. Was Harry ever really choosing, or just playing the role Dumbledore wrote for him? So let's stress test this whole thing. If Dumbledore really had no other choice but secrecy, then even small changes should break the story, right? But what happens if we start nudging those secrets earlier, piece by piece, and actually look at how the endgame might shift? First, the big one. Harry finding out he's a Horcrux in 6th year. Imagine Dumbledore sitting him down after the cave, not to say I'm dying, but to say, "You're carrying a piece of Voldemort's soul." I want to be clear about what I mean by that. I don't just mean extra angst. I mean Harry going back to the burrow, knowing that every time Ginny hugs him, she's inches from the thing that almost killed her. Does he pull away from her, from Ron and Hermione, or does he double down, insisting on taking bigger risks because he knows the clock is ticking on his own life? In that version, his relationship with Snape changes too. If Snape is openly preparing him for a final sacrifice, their mutual hatred becomes a plot hole in the emotional logic of the story. Either Snape has to soften, or Harry has to start asking why this man who hates him is suddenly so invested in occlumency and survival tactics. I'd also argue that a Harry who knows he's marked for death might hunt Horcruxes with more focus, not less. No wandering back to Hogwarts for one last normal year. No illusion that he can somehow dodge the prophecy. Now layer in the Hallows. Suppose, before Deathly Hallows, Dumbledore actually explains, "These are real. I've had the Elder Wand. Your cloak is one of them. The stone is out there, but if you chase them, you'll lose sight of the Horcruxes." With that kind of briefing, does Harry still get seduced by the idea of the Master of Death? Or does he treat the Hallows like any other dangerous piece of magic? The book frames his obsession as a character flaw, but if Dumbledore had given him clear adult guidance, maybe the invisibility cloak stays a tool, the Elder Wand a historical footnote, and a stone a tragic temptation he's already been warned against. Then there's Snape's loyalty. What if, after the Astronomy Tower, the Order is told the truth, Snape killed Dumbledore on Dumbledore's orders? That one explanation potentially removes so much internal mistrust. No splintering over whether Snape is a traitor. No Lupin, McGonagall, and the Weasleys wasting energy second-guessing each other while Voldemort takes the Ministry. Would a united Order have protected more Muggleborns? Saved more students at Hogwarts? I'll let you guys be the judge, but it's hard not to see the secrecy itself as a seemingly convenient way to keep tension high. All of this is speculative, obviously, but it forces us to ask, Was secrecy truly the only path, or just the one Dumbledore chose because he was terrified of repeating his mistakes with Grindelwald and Ariana? He tells Harry that power was his weakness. Then he hoards information as his new safety. And here's the uncomfortable thought. Maybe Harry's heroism never required ignorance at all. Maybe an informed Harry told the full truth about the prophecy, the Hallows, the Horcrux inside him, and Snape's mission, would have walked into the forest anyway, but with far more agency. If that's true, then the next question is even sharper. What does that say about the one secret Dumbledore never really answers, even in King's Cross? And that brings us to the really uncomfortable fork in the road. If Harry could have chosen with full knowledge, then how do we actually classify the man who chose to keep him in the dark? Is Dumbledore our tragic hero, our deeply flawed anti-hero, or the quiet chessmaster villain of his own story? Let's dive into it. I want to be clear about what I mean by those labels, because this isn't just a fandom meme tier list. A tragic hero reading sees Dumbledore as fundamentally good, but warped by grief and guilt. Ariana's death, his fallout with Aberforth, and the Grindelwald years scar him so badly that he spends the rest of his life overcorrecting. From this angle, the Hallows silence is almost penance. He knows he once chased them with Grindelwald, so when he recognizes Harry's invisibility cloak as a Hallow, he returns it but refuses to tempt Harry with the full explanation. Similarly, he keeps Harry's Horcrux status vague, because he can't bear to lay that burden on a child until it's absolutely necessary. The Tower Plan with Snape becomes a mercy killing, carefully staged to save Draco's soul and spare the school from a bloodbath. The plot hole isn't that he's secretly evil, it's that he's a broken man trying to do good with terrible tools. But there's a harsher, anti-hero reading that a lot of us drift toward the more we reread the final book. Here, Dumbledore is still on the right side, but his ends justify the means. Logic and emotional distance make him only marginally better than his enemies. He leaves Harry with the Dursleys knowing it will be abusive, because the blood protection is strategically useful. He withholds the full prophecy and a Horcrux explanation not only to protect Harry, but to keep him controllable. I'd also argue that the way he choreographs the astronomy tower is chilling. From this angle. He turns Snape into a long-term double agent and executioner, never telling the Order the full story, because secrecy keeps his plan flexible. It all makes sense on a tactical level. But at what point does tactical become cold? And then there's the most extreme frame, Dumbledore as chessmaster villain. This doesn't mean moustache-twirling dark wizard. It means the true architect of Harry's suffering, operating with near omniscience. He knows about the Hallows, owns the Elder Wand, and still lets Harry wander into Deathly Hallows with almost no guidance, because confusion pushes Harry toward the path Dumbledore prefers. By Half-Blood Prince, he strongly suspects Harry is a Horcrux, yet he deliberately delays the explanation until after his own death, ensuring Harry walks to the forest believing it's his only option. From this angle, every seemingly convenient coincidence, the cloak at Christmas, the sword in the lake, even Snape's Do Patronus, becomes part of a long game where Harry's sacrifice is not a tragic necessity, but a designed endpoint. Hey everyone, welcome to another moral minefield where I'll let you guys be the judge. After we finish unpacking the last pieces of Dumbledore's plan, which alignment do you land on and why? Before we dive into our final examples, start thinking about your answer. because this is where the story's entire moral logic either holds or quietly falls apart. So let's slam the brakes for a second and run a rapid-fire audit. When we stack all of Dumbledore's secrets together, does the story's moral logic still hold? Or does it start to look like one giant, convenient plot hole in slow motion? First up, the prophecy. Dumbledore hears it, knows it paints a target on either Harry or Neville, and still leaves baby Harry on a doorstep with zero explanation. Later, he drip-feeds Harry the contents across years. Could he have sat 11-year-old Harry down and actually explained, in clear terms, there is a prophecy about you and Voldemort believes it? Would that have been catastrophic or just honest? Then the Dursleys. Dumbledore knows this is not a loving home. He writes those breezy letters and leaves Harry to a decade of emotional abuse because the blood protection is supposedly more important. Could he have told Harry, even in first year, "You're not here because I forgot you, you're here because this specific magic keeps you alive"? Would that knowledge really have broken the protection, or just given Harry a tiny bit of dignity? Chamber of Secrets. Dumbledore strongly suspects Voldemort's teenage diary is more than just a cursed notebook, and that Tom Riddle's past is crucial. Yet he never explains Horcruxes, never says, by the way, if you see any weird soul-flavored artifacts, maybe don't write in them. Could he reasonably have warned Harry without handing him a how-to guide on dark magic? The Hallows. Dumbledore owns the Elder Wand, borrows the invisibility cloak for years, and has obsessed over the Resurrection Stone. Still, he leaves Harry to learn about the Deathly Hallows from a children's story and Xenophilius Lovegood. Would a clear explanation from Dumbledore have doomed the mission, or just prevented Harry from nearly choosing Hallows over Horcruxes by accident? Horcruxes themselves. For most of the book series, Harry is hunting Voldemort without even knowing what a Horcrux is. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. He is literally fighting a disembodied soul without the vocabulary to describe what's happening. Could Dumbledore have introduced the concept earlier, with limits and context, instead of waiting until Half-Blood Prince to finally say the word? Harry as a Horcrux is the darkest version of this pattern. Dumbledore strongly suspects it by the cave mission, but chooses not to confirm it while alive. I'd also argue that this is the one secret where the tell him and he breaks explanation feels most emotionally convincing, but also the one that maximizes Harry's personal danger. Could Harry have handled even a partial truth about why his scar hurts so much? And finally, the Snape plan. The Astronomy Tower death, the Unbreakable Vow, Snape's double role. Dumbledore keeps Harry frozen and ignorant while staging his own murder. Could he have told Harry, whatever you see tonight, trust Snape, without shattering the performance for Draco and the Death Eaters? When we line them up like this, a pattern jumps out. Secrecy almost always increases Harry's risk in the short term, supposedly to protect the long game. I'll let you guys be the judge of whether that trade-off actually works. Next, let's dive into it more slowly. We'll zoom back in on a few of these, specifically the Hallows, the Horcruxes, and Harry's planned sacrifice, and test whether Dumbledore's explanations really hold under close inspection. So, now that we've pulled the camera back and looked at Dumbledore's secrecy as a pattern, we need to do something a little ruthless. We're going to rank the secrets. Which choice is actually the most unforgivable, at least in terms of story logic and ethics? Let's dive into it. I want to be clear about what I mean by worst here. We're not just asking which secret feels the most shocking in the book. We're weighing three things specifically: how much it damaged Harry's agency, how directly it risked his life, and whether there were safer, less manipulative alternatives that Dumbledore seemingly ignored. With that in mind, here's our preliminary ranking from most to least troubling. 1. Harry as a Horcrux. 2. The Snape kill plan. 3. The Hallows silence. 4. The prophecy half-truths. And 5. The Dursley decision. Let's start at the top. By half-blood prints, Dumbledore guesses Harry is a Horcrux and then builds a plan in which Harry must walk into the forest and let Voldemort kill him. That's a human sacrifice plot. The King's Cross chapter makes it explicit. You knew? Harry says, and Dumbledore answers, I guessed. But my guesses have usually been good. Harry never truly consents in advance because he never has the full explanation until after he's already died. In terms of agency and direct risk, it's hard to beat that. Number 2, the Snape kill plan is slightly less extreme but still chilling. On the Astronomy Tower, Harry is immobilized under the invisibility cloak while Snape kills Dumbledore. The entire Order believes this is a betrayal. Dumbledore could have told at least McGonagall or Lupin the truth, but he chooses a level of secrecy that destroys trust and nearly gets Snape killed by his own side. I'd also argue that using Draco as an unwitting pawn in that same plan adds another layer of moral mess. 3rd, the Hallows silence. Dumbledore owns the Elder Wand, studies the Hallows with Grindelwald, borrows the invisibility cloak from James, and still gives Harry almost no real explanation. Instead, Harry has to read Rita Skeeter's sensational book and stumble into the Hallows quest half-informed. This doesn't risk his life as directly as the Horcrux secret, but it does warp his choices in Deathly Hallows, especially when he almost prioritizes the wand over the Horcrux hunt. 4th, the prophecy half-truths. Dumbledore hears Trelawney's words, knows Voldemort only heard part, and then tells Harry a carefully edited version in Order of the Phoenix. Yes, he eventually gives the full explanation in his office, but only after Sirius is dead and Harry has already walked into a trap at the Ministry. The impact on Harry's agency is huge, but the direct life risk is more indirect than the forest sacrifice. And finally, the Dursley decision. Leaving baby Harry on Privet Drive with nothing but a letter is cruel. But there is at least a clear magical explanation: blood wards, protection. The logic of hiding him in the Muggle world. We can debate whether that justification is good enough, but it's the one secret where the protective motive is actually foregrounded in the text. Of course, you might rank these differently. Maybe you think the Hallows silence is worse than the Snape plan because it derails the entire final book. Maybe you put the Dursleys higher because of the long-term emotional damage. I'll let you guys be the judge. Drop your own ranking in the comments, or if you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to vote in the pinned poll so we can see how the fandom's moral compass lines up. Because next, we're going to slow down and stare directly at that number one choice, Harry as a Horcrux. Was Dumbledore's greater good explanation enough? Or is this the point where his character crosses a line the story never fully admits? Hey everyone, welcome to another uncomfortable ethical deep dive into the boy who lived and the man who let him die. So let's slow this right down and relitigate the biggest secret in the whole story. Did Dumbledore actually have to let Harry walk into the forest to die? Or is this the moment where the greater good starts to look like a very elegant plot hole? I want to be clear about what I mean by the core facts here. By Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore strongly suspects Harry is carrying a piece of Voldemort's soul. He's already seen Harry's visions, he understands the botched killing curse, and he knows Voldemort used multiple Horcruxes. From that, he concludes that for Voldemort to be mortal, that fragment in Harry must be destroyed, and the only known way to destroy a Horcrux is to destroy its container. So he keeps this from Harry, refuses to fully confirm it even to Snape until the very end, and arranges things so Harry only learns the truth from Snape's memories after Dumbledore himself is gone. Given all of that, could there have been a magical alternative? The book gives us some pretty brutal examples. The diary is stabbed, the ring is cracked by the killing curse, the locket is destroyed with basilisk venom, the cup with fiendfire. Every time the object is wrecked. There's no clean, surgical extraction spell. Dumbledore is the wizard who hunted down Grindelwald, mastered the Elder Wand, and studied dark magic enough to recognize Horcruxes on sight. If anyone would know a safe ritual, it's him. The fact that he doesn't even hint at one is a strong in-universe explanation that this magic either doesn't exist or is so experimental and corrupting that he won't risk it on a child. But we also have to ask, did he have to carry that alone? Could he have said to the Order, to McGonagall, even to Snape much earlier, Harry might be a Horcrux, we need another option? Could he have told Harry himself in 6th year and said, we're going to search for a different solution together? That's where his pattern of secrecy starts to feel less like strategy and more like habit. He doesn't convene a think tank of geniuses. He doesn't send Bill to comb Gringotts' records for obscure rituals or ask Lupin to scour the Old Order's contacts. He keeps the circle tiny and the plan simple. Harry must die at the right moment. And that choice is absolutely shaped by Ariana and Grindelwald. After watching his sister die in a crossfire of teenage ambition, Dumbledore is terrified of his own power and his own cleverness. He overcorrects. He decides the most moral thing he can do is not to experiment with dangerous magic on Harry's soul, but to accept the awful answer the logic of Horcruxes gives him. I'd also argue that this is, ironically, still Dumbledore playing God. He's deciding which avenues are too dark to even try on Harry's behalf. I'll let you guys be the judge of whether that's wisdom or cowardice. The text keeps just enough ambiguity that you can read Dumbledore as the only adult willing to face the truth, or as a man so haunted by his past that he refuses to risk being wrong again. And this is exactly the fault line where most readers either finally forgive him or quietly condemn him. Because next, we need to test that choice against one more hidden variable: the Deathly Hallows themselves. If Dumbledore knew about a trio of artifacts that literally cheat death, why didn't he put them on the table when Harry's life was the stake? Hey everyone, welcome to another round of What Did Dumbledore Know and When Did He Know It? Let's dive into it. So here's the twist we have to talk about next. Some of Dumbledore's most frustrating secrets only make full sense when we zoom out from the character and look at the author. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. We're not saying Rowling bad, plot hole, the end. We're saying Dumbledore's secrecy is also a structural choice that keeps the whole story from collapsing under too much information. From a storytelling perspective, Dumbledore's silence keeps us locked into Harry's limited point of view. We only know what Harry knows when he knows it. If Dumbledore had sat him down at the end of Goblet of Fire and said, "Okay, there are Horcruxes. Here's Tom Riddle's full biography. Oh, and by the way, you're probably one of them. Then the next 3 books would look completely different. There's no slow mystery of the diary, ring, locket, cup, and diadem. There's no desperate research in Half-Blood Prince. There's no camping tension in Deathly Hallows. The magic is still there, but the suspense drains away. And it's not just the Horcruxes. If Dumbledore also added, plus there's a legendary trio of Deathly Hallows, I own the Elder Wand, your cloak is one of them, and here's the Hallows versus Horcruxes dilemma you'll face in Book 7, that entire late-game conflict disappears. Harry can't be torn between chasing Hallows or destroying Horcruxes if he's been given a clear, logical flowchart in Book 4. The story needs him to be confused, tempted, even wrong for a while. We feel that confusion with him because Dumbledore keeps the explanation deliberately incomplete. There's another layer here too, the way Dumbledore's flaws are revealed over time. Philosopher's Stone gives us the twinkly grandpa. By Order of the Phoenix, he's distant and evasive. By Deathly Hallows, Rita Skeeter is dropping bombs about Grindelwald and Ariana, and suddenly our comforting mentor is morally complicated. That gradual shift mirrors our own journey from childhood wonder to adult complexity. If we knew in Book 1 that Dumbledore once dreamed of wizard domination with Grindelwald, the tone of the entire series changes overnight. This is where some plot hole moments start to blur. Did Dumbledore really have no better option than leaving Harry with the Dursleys? Did he truly have to let Snape kill him without telling the Order? Sometimes the in-universe logic is shaky because the narrative needs him to withhold, not because he's secretly the villain, but because a fully transparent Dumbledore would solve problems too quickly and rob later moments of their impact. So as we keep going, we need to hold both levels in mind at once. Dumbledore as a character making hard, sometimes harsh choices, and Dumbledore as a tool Rowling uses to shape how we experience each reveal. I'd also argue that tension between the two is exactly why he's so endlessly debated. And speaking of tension, there's one last secret that perfectly sits at that crossroads: his silence about the Deathly Hallows themselves. If you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to stick around, because next we're going to pull apart what he knew about the Hallows, when he knew it, and why he let Harry walk into that choice nearly blind. So at this point, we've unpacked the Hallows, the Horcruxes, and the way Dumbledore just lets Harry stumble toward that choice almost blind. Now we have to zoom out and look at the whole pattern. Because when you line up every category of secret, the picture gets a lot harder to shrug off as eccentric old mentor being mysterious. Let's quickly map the big ones. First, his childhood and the prophecy. Dumbledore hears a prophecy that a boy born as the 7th month dies will have the power to defeat Voldemort, and he quietly lets that prophecy define Harry's entire life without ever giving him the full context until it's almost too late. At the same time, he hides his past with Grindelwald, Ariana, and Aberforth, even when Rita Skeeter is splashing it across the book. Then we have the Hallows and the Horcruxes. He owns the Elder Wand, holds on to the invisibility cloak for years, strongly suspects multiple Horcruxes, and still gives Harry a scavenger hunt of half-clues instead of a clear explanation. Next, Snape and the Tower. Dumbledore and Snape prearrange the Astronomy Tower death, but Harry is left thinking he's witnessed a straightforward betrayal. The Order is left in the dark. Even McGonagall only gets fragments. Then there's Harry as a Horcrux and the final sacrifice. By Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore actually suspects that a piece of Voldemort's soul is lodged in Harry, and he still sends a 17-year-old into the forest to die based on a plan that will only fully make sense after King's Cross. I want to be clear about what I mean by judging him here. Not every one of these moments is a clean-cut plot hole or a smoking gun of manipulation. Some have strong in-universe logic. Protecting a traumatized kid from the full horror of a prophecy? That's understandable. Not shouting about the Deathly Hallows when Voldemort is obsessed with power? That's at least defensible. I'd also argue that the Snape arrangement has a solid, tactical explanation. But other choices lean heavily on narrative necessity and feel, at best, conveniently vague. Why not confirm Harry is a Horcrux earlier, once he's already committed? Why not give him a direct briefing on the Elder Wand, instead of a children's tale and a pile of guilt? At what point does guiding Harry start to look like steering him toward a pre-planned death? So this is where I'll let you guys be the judge. In the comments, give us your overall verdict on Dumbledore. Is he a heroic strategist doing the best anyone could in an impossible war? An anti-hero whose love for Harry is constantly undercut by his willingness to use him? Or a villainous chess master hiding behind lemon drops and twinkly eyes? And here's the important part. Back it up with one specific example from the book that you think proves your case. We'll be going through those and highlighting some of the most thoughtful takes in a future video or community post, so if you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to leave something we can feature. And if you're interested in how this judgment shifts when we put Dumbledore next to characters like Snape, Voldemort, and even Harry himself, let's dive into it together by subscribing and staying tuned. Because the moral math only gets messier from here. So if you're still here with us, weighing Dumbledore's choices like evidence in a trial, you're exactly the kind of viewer we make these videos for. We're not just reliving the story, we're putting the magic and the logic under a microscope and asking what it actually means. That's why hitting the like button is more important than it seems. It's not just a nice gesture, it's a signal. It tells the algorithm, and honestly it tells us, that you want more of these deep, critical dives into the wizarding world's internal logic. When we question why Dumbledore hid the full prophecy, or why he sat on the truth about Harry as a Horcrux, that's a very specific kind of analysis. If you want more of that, liking this video is the simplest way to vote for it. And if you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to look through the rest of this series after this video. We've been slowly building a bigger picture of how the books handle things like plot hole level decisions, convenient magic, and secret keeping. Dumbledore's lies about the Deathly Hallows don't exist in a vacuum, they sit right next to Snape's real mission, Voldemort's mistakes with the Elder Wand, and even Harry's own blind spots. I want to be clear about what I mean by subscribing here. We're not just saying more Harry Potter content coming soon in a vague way. We've got full breakdowns planned where we treat Snape, Voldemort, and maybe even Harry himself with the same level of scrutiny we've given Dumbledore today. Did Snape's loyalty ever truly outweigh Dumbledore's manipulation? Did Voldemort's obsession with immortality make more sense than the story admits? I'll let you guys be the judge, but only if you're there when those videos drop. So if that sounds like your kind of ongoing trial, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next witness taking the stand. Think of it as following the whole case, book by book, character by character, instead of just hearing one dramatic testimony and walking out of the courtroom. We'd also really appreciate it if you shared this video with that one friend who still insists Dumbledore is just a kindly grandpa with twinkly eyes and a bowl of sherbet lemons. Send this to them as friendly fuel for your next argument. Ask them, does a loving grandfather usually design a child's life around a planned death in the Forbidden Forest, then hide the explanation in a posthumous letter? And remember, this isn't a one-off. This video lives inside a larger playlist of plot hole analysis, secret breakdowns, and lore explanations, so if you want a natural binge path, start there and let the algorithm do the rest. Alright, with that out of the way, let's quickly recap the biggest secrets we've uncovered today and see how they all fit together into Dumbledore's final controversial plan. So, rapid recap time. We've been zoomed in on details and motives for a while now, so let's pull the camera back and look at Dumbledore's secrets as one continuous story. What was he actually doing to Harry's life from the very beginning? First, the prophecy and the Dursleys. Dumbledore hears a prophecy that a child born at the end of July will have the power to defeat Voldemort. He knows it's Harry or Neville, he knows Voldemort will act on it, and he still leaves baby Harry on a doorstep with a note. No explanation to Harry, almost nothing to the Dursleys, and certainly no honest conversation when Harry turns 11. From that moment, Dumbledore is quietly shaping Harry's childhood, his trauma, and his sense of destiny, while pretending Harry is just a boy who lived and not a weapon being positioned on the board. Then we have the Hallows thread quietly woven through the book. Dumbledore holds on to the invisibility cloak for years, recognizes it as the Hallow class cloak, and returns it with a one-line note. No legend, no, by the way, this might be one of the most important objects in wizarding history. The stone he hides in a snitch, forcing Harry into a game of delayed riddles, and when he personally wields the Elder Wand, he never gives Harry a clear explanation of wand allegiance, or what this unbeatable wand really is. The fairy tale that explains everything is left as a children's story, and Harry only pieces it together under extreme pressure in Deathly Hallows. Next, the Horcrux arc. Dumbledore suspects Voldemort's using Horcruxes long before he tells Harry. He collects memories, hunts for cursed objects, and still keeps the full horror of multiple soul fragments behind the curtain. By Half-Blood Prince, he has enough logic to suspect Harry himself is carrying a piece of Voldemort, but he withholds that conclusion. Harry is trained to hunt Horcruxes, not told here's one. The belief that Harry must die as the final Horcrux is locked away until King's Cross. Layered on top of that is the Snape alliance and the Tower Plan. Dumbledore extracts a promise from Snape to protect Harry, then another to kill him at the Astronomy Tower. He stages his own death as a piece of theatre for Voldemort, the Death Eaters, and even the Order, and he lets Harry's hatred of Snape harden because the cover is more important than the boy's feelings. I'd also argue that this is one of the most emotionally brutal choices in the entire series. And finally, the forest again and King's Cross. Harry walks into the forest believing he's simply going to die, not understanding the magic of blood, Hallows, and Horcrux logic that Dumbledore has been juggling. Only under that white light in the dreamlike station does Dumbledore give him the full explanation. The Hallows, the Horcrux in his scar, the Elder Wand, and the fact that Dumbledore has been both protector and manipulator all along. I'll let you guys be the judge of whether that grand plan feels wise, cruel, or some messy combination of both. because next we're going to zoom in on what that says about Dumbledore as a person, not just as a chess master. So once we strip away the chessboard and look at Dumbledore as a person, not just a mastermind, we hit the really uncomfortable question. After all of these secrets, can we still call Dumbledore good? This is where the series stops feeling like a simple children's story and starts poking at us a bit. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. For a lot of us, Dumbledore was our first fictional mentor, the wise old wizard who always had a lemon drop and a reassuring line about love. Rereading the books and realizing that this same man left Harry with the Dursleys knowing exactly how awful they were. That he suspected Harry was a Horcrux by Half-Blood Prince and still didn't tell him can feel like a betrayal. It's emotionally jarring. It almost feels like finding out your favorite teacher lied to you. And yet, the text will not let us flatten him into a simple villain. Dumbledore does love Harry. He watches Harry on the Marauders map, he sends him the invisibility cloak back in the first book, he gives him chances to grow instead of locking him away in a tower. He cries when he tells Snape that he has grown to care for the boy. But that love is tangled up with something much darker, a willingness to use Harry as a weapon, to send him into the forest to die once the Horcrux in his scar becomes Voldemort's last anchor. Is that love? Is that cruelty? Is it both at once? The magic of this character, if you'll pardon the expression, is that the story actually leans into that contradiction. When we see Dumbledore in King's Cross, he admits that he was tempted by the Hallows, that he once dreamed of ruling for the greater good, that Ariana's death and his past with Grindelwald shattered any simple belief that power plus good intentions equals a clean conscience. The book gives us the explanation that he tried to do better with Harry, but it never fully lets him off the hook. I'd also argue that this makes the overall story stronger, not weaker. If Dumbledore were perfectly good, perfectly honest, then Harry's final walk into the forest would feel like a neat moral equation. Good boy sacrifices himself because good mentor told him to. Instead, we're stuck in the messier reality where Harry has to choose to trust a deeply flawed man who kept vital information from him. That's not a plot hole in the logic of the world, that's the whole point. It's what makes the series feel surprisingly adult and endlessly rereadable. So, can we still call Dumbledore good? I'll let you guys be the judge. Maybe he's a tragic hero, maybe he's a manipulative general, maybe he's both, depending on which moment you focus on. What matters is that the books invite us to keep wrestling with that discomfort, to ask whether the greater good ever really justifies raising a child to die. And if you enjoy that kind of morally messy analysis, don't worry, we're not stopping with Dumbledore. Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive into wizarding ethics, because in the next sections and future videos, we're going to turn this same level of scrutiny on Snape, on Grindelwald, even on Harry himself. If you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to stick around, because some of those characters might not come out looking as clean as you remember. So now that we've laid out Dumbledore's entire web of secrets, we want to hand the Elder Wand over to you, metaphorically speaking. It's your turn to decide what kind of character we're actually dealing with here. Was this the wise mentor making impossible choices in an impossible war, or a general moving pieces around a chessboard and calling them children? In the comments or in the poll we'll pin under this video, vote on Dumbledore's final alignment. Is he a hero, an anti-hero, or a full-on villainous mastermind whose plan just happened to save the world? I want to be clear about what I mean by that last option. We're not asking if he twirled a moustache off-screen. We're asking whether the overall pattern of manipulation, withheld information, and calculated sacrifice pushes him over the moral line, no matter how convenient the outcome is for the story. And then go one layer deeper. Name the single most unforgivable secret Dumbledore kept from Harry and tell us why. Was it hiding the full prophecy and what he really expected Harry to do with it? Was it knowing, by Half-Blood Prince, that Harry was probably a Horcrux and still sending him back to school like everything was normal? Or was it the way he sat on the truth about Ariana and Grindelwald, letting Harry learn it from a tabloid book instead of from the man he trusted most? I'll let you guys be the judge, but give us a proper explanation, 2 or 3 sentences specifically, so we can actually see your logic. From there, let's decide together where this series goes next. Do we put Snape's ethics on trial and ask whether his always actually excuses a lifetime of cruelty? Do we pick apart Voldemort's logic and see if his whole immortality plan makes sense on its own magical terms? Or do we go after the Ministry's failures and look at how many plot hole level decisions it takes to enable a Dark Lord? Twice. Drop your vote for the next deep dive in the comments as well. If you want this kind of collaborative dissection of the book and a magic and the supposed rules to keep going, remember to like this video, subscribe, and share it with that one friend who still defends every Dumbledore decision as flawless. Hey everyone, welcome to another round of Hogwarts courtroom drama, only if there are actually people in the seats, so your engagement is genuinely important for whether we keep making these. If you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to watch the other breakdowns in this series, because Dumbledore's secrets look very different once you compare them to how other characters are written. Whether you forgive Dumbledore or not, at least now you know what he never told Harry, and in the next section we're going to take that knowledge and push it one step further. So we've spent this whole video unpacking what Dumbledore knew, what he hid, and how he steered Harry's life. But there's a quiet twist we need to talk about before we finish. Because for all his reputation as a chess master, there's one category of secret Dumbledore never had. The things he genuinely didn't know. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. We're not just talking about little gaps in his schedule or some convenient plot hole where the story needs him off stage. We're talking about places where the magic itself, or the people around him, actually surprised him. And one of the biggest examples is right at the emotional peak of Deathly Hallows, in the Forbidden Forest. When Harry walks into the forest to die, he's relying on the protection created by Lily's sacrifice. Dumbledore understood that magic in broad strokes. He knew Voldemort taking Harry's blood tethered Harry to life, and he knew Lily's love mattered in some deep, ancient way. But he did not fully understand what would happen when Harry let himself be killed. He admits as much in King's Cross. He hoped Harry might come back. He suspected the blood connection would matter. Yet the exact form of that protection, the way Harry returns and Voldemort's killing curse rebounds again, isn't something Dumbledore could map out like an equation. And that's not the only blind spot. He misjudges Creature, treating him as a minor inconvenience instead of the key to understanding Regulus and the Horcrux at Grimmauld Place. He misreads the Ministry's denial in Order of the Phoenix, assuming that exposing Voldemort will be enough, when the book shows us a bureaucracy willing to twist reality for as long as it can. He doesn't foresee every Horcrux hiding place either. He guesses at the ring and the locket, but the diadem, for instance, is something Harry finds through Tom Riddle's memories and sheer narrative stubbornness rather than some perfect Dumbledore blueprint. I'd also argue that these gaps are actually important for how we see him. They humanize him. For all his power and all his secrets, he is not omniscient. Some of the most important moments in the story fall outside his control. Harry's choice to spare Draco. Snape's decision to show Harry his memories. Even Voldemort taking Harry's blood in Goblet of Fire, which Dumbledore later reframes as an advantage, begins as a move he did not anticipate. And this is where the psychology kicks in. Because if Dumbledore knows he can't predict everything, why does he cling so tightly to secrecy and control? Why design a plan where Harry must die at the right time, in the right way, with information carefully rationed out? The answer, I think, goes back to Ariana. The one time in his youth when events truly spun beyond his grasp, the fallout was catastrophic. A sister dead, a brother estranged, a lover turned Dark Lord. From that point on, control becomes his coping mechanism. If he can't know everything, he'll at least script as much as he can. He'll hold back the prophecy, drip-feed the truth about Horcruxes, and let Snape carry the unbearable knowledge of Harry's fate. It's not just about beating Voldemort. It's about never again being the boy who misjudged a situation so badly that someone innocent died. And that leads us to one last uncomfortable thought. Dumbledore's greatest secret might not be about Hallows or Horcruxes at all. It might be his fear of his own fallibility. The terror that, if he admits how often he guesses or hopes instead of knows, the whole plan will unravel. He plays God with other people's lives precisely because he's so afraid of what happens when no one is in control. I'll let you guys be the judge of whether that fear makes him more forgivable or less. But in the next section, we're going to zoom out one final time and ask what all of this does to Harry's story as a whole. Because once you see Dumbledore as powerful, secretive, and deeply uncertain, the ending of Deathly Hallows reads very differently. Hey everyone, welcome to another angle on this character, not just the mastermind, but the man who never fully trusted himself. If you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to watch the rest of this series, because we're about to tie all of these threads together and ask what Dumbledore's secrets mean for the logic of the entire saga. So let's dive into it. Because if Dumbledore's secrets make us rethink the entire story, then we have to ask, who's the next witness we put on the stand? For us, there's only one answer. The man with the worst shampoo routine in Hogwarts history and the most quoted single word in the fandom, Severus Snape. In our next breakdown, we're putting Snape under Veritaserum and asking whether always actually redeems him, or if that moment is a brilliant emotional distraction from a lifetime of cruelty and very questionable choices. I want to be clear about what I mean by that. We're not just asking was Snape good or bad. We're looking at the specific moments where his actions either save the wizarding world or make things much, much worse, and whether the magic and logic of the book really support the idea that he dies a hero. We'll go back to his deal with Dumbledore after the prophecy, his treatment of Harry in class, the way he handles the occlumency lessons, and, of course, the planned death on the astronomy tower. Did he have other options? Did Dumbledore's instructions box him in? Or did Snape lean into the role of bully because it was convenient for him emotionally? even while he was supposedly protecting Harry. I'll let you guys be the judge. But Snape is just the next step in this series, not the end of it. We're also going to tackle Voldemort's strategic mistakes, from splitting his soul into easily traceable trophies, to underestimating house elves, to ignoring the Deathly Hallows entirely. Then we'll move into the Ministry's systemic failures, like how a government that supposedly fears Dumbledore still lets him run a school full of children with almost no oversight, and why their bureaucracy keeps creating the exact conditions Voldemort needs to rise again. And because we have to be fair, we're going to look at Harry's own blind spots too, the moments where his temper, his assumptions, or his trust in certain adults actually make the plot hole problems worse. I'd also argue that when we put Harry himself on the witness stand, a lot of these convenient story turns start to look like character flaws that were never fully confronted. If you haven't checked them out already, then be sure to watch the other episodes in this ongoing Wizarding Witness Stand run, especially our Deathly Hallows plot hole breakdown. That one pairs directly with Dumbledore's secrets, because once you've seen how the Hallows and Horcruxes strain the internal rules of magic, his silence about them reads very differently. For anyone who's new here, this isn't a one-off rant. This is a structured series where each video builds on the last, book by book, character by character, pulling on threads until the larger explanation for the saga's logic starts to come into focus. So cue up the playlist, keep the trial going, and thank you for being willing to think this deeply about a childhood series. We'll see you back in the courtroom for the next case in the wizarding world.